Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. The dense canopy of Pandora spread out like an emerald ocean, shimmering under the planet's gentle light. Years had passed since the Na'vi pushed back the human invaders, their towering trees and glowing fauna once again thriving in peaceful harmony. But peace, as the Na'vi knew too well, was often fragile. Tarak stood at the edge of a wide, tranquil river, its waters gleaming in soft blue hues as they wound through the ancient forest. His reflection stared back at him, the deep-set eyes of a warrior who had only known battle and sacrifice for his people. He'd fought to protect this land, his home, and now a new threat loomed over the horizon. Unlike the war with the Sky People, this enemy was invisibly a sickness, a creeping decay spreading through the life force of Pandora itself. Bending down, he dipped his fingers into the water. It felt colder than usual. A few months ago, the river had been warm, full of energy and vitality. Now, it felt a broken bar drained. He looked up to the towering trees that lined the riverbank. The vibrant glow they once emitted had dimmed, their bark peeling, the leaves tinged with brown. With a deep breath, Tarak straightened up and walked back toward the village. His mother, Idukn, the matriarch of the Na'vi Council, had summoned him. His steps were heavy as the thought of what awaited him gnawed at his mind. The Na'vi believed their connection to Pandora was eternal, unbreakable. But now, it felt as though that bond was fraying, slipping out of their control. In the distance, the large gathering of Na'vi warriors, healers, and council members came into view. They stood around a sacred tree of souls, its soft tendrils gently swaying, illuminated by a faint glow. Yet, even that glow seemed weaker now. Tarak approached Idukn, who stood in the center of the gathering. Her face was etched with the weariness of leadership, her once piercing gaze clouded by worry. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip strong despite her age. "We are losing Pandora, my son," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the council. "The forests are dying, the rivers turning cold. Even the creatures grow restless. We do not understand why." Tarak nodded solemnly. "I have seen it, mother. The river is not what it once was. It feels so broken bar sick." Idukn's eyes hardened, but her expression remained thoughtful. "We have sent messages to the other clans. They too have seen the signs. It spreads faster than we anticipated." One of the elders stepped forward, his voice grave. "We cannot let this continue. If the sickness reaches the Tree of Souls, our connection to Pandora will be severed forever. We must act now." Before anyone could respond, a strange buzzing sound filled the air. Tarak's gaze shot upward. In the sky, the unmistakable silhouette of a human aircraft hovered just above the treetops. The Na'vi warriors immediately bristled, gripping their weapons tightly. It had been years since the humans had been allowed this close to Na'vi territory. A voice crackled through a speaker, loud and unfamiliar. "Na'vi people, we come in peace. We bring news of the sickness. Please, allow us to help." Tarak's fist tightened around the hilt of his knife. "Humans," he hissed, his voice low with contempt. Idukn held up her hand, signaling for calm. "Let them speak," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. The warriors stepped back, though their eyes never left the hovering ship. Moments later, the aircraft landed softly, and from its door stepped a small group of humans in sleek, unfamiliar suits. At their lead was a woman, tall, with sharp features and piercing green eyes. She stepped forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "My name is Dr. Clara Hayden," she said, her voice steady. "We've been monitoring Pandora from our orbital station. The virus that's spreading through your forests and water, say it's not natural. It's a foreign contaminant, likely introduced from outside the planet." Idukn narrowed her eyes. "Why should we trust you, Sky People? You brought death and destruction to our world once before." Clara lowered her gaze, regret flickering in her eyes. "What happened years ago was a tragedy, one that I had no part in. But I'm here now to help. My team of scientists has been studying this virus, and we believe we can stop Haida, but we can't do it alone. We need your help." Tarak took a step forward, his chest tight with anger. "We need nothing from you." Clara met his glare head on. "I understand your mistrust, but this virus will not stop at your forests. It will kill everything, including your people. Pandora is dying." A heavy silence fell over the gathering as the weight of her words sank in. Idukun turned to Tarak, her expression unreadable. "What do you think, my son?" Tarak's heart pounded in his chest. Every fiber of his being screamed to reject these humans, to turn them away and protect Pandora with his own hands. But deep down, he knew they were out of time. The sickness was spreading too fast. "We have no choice," Tarak said finally, though the words tasted bitter. "We must work with them." Iduk nodded, her face grave. "Then it is decided. We will work together to save Pandora." Days passed in a blur of frantic activity. Navi warriors and Earth scientists, once bitter enemies, now found themselves side by side, trying to understand the virus ravaging Pandora's ecosystem. Tarak led hunting parties to gather samples of infected plants and animals, while Clara and her team worked tirelessly to analyze the data. Despite their efforts, the virus showed no signs of slowing. Each day, more and more of Pandora's sacred lands fell to its invisible grip. Tarak grew restless, the weight of his people's survival pressing down on him. He watched as Clara and her team worked with a determination he hadn't expected, but doubt lingered in his mind. One night, unable to sleep, Tarak ventured deep into the forest alone. He walked until the trees grew thin, the ground beneath him cracked and dry. The virus had taken this part of Pandora completely, the once vibrant life drained of color and energy. Suddenly, his vision blurred, and he felt a strange pull deep within his chest. He stumbled forward, his legs weak, and collapsed at the base of a large tree. The ground felt cold against his skin, but the sensation quickly faded as a vision overtook him. His surroundings melted away, replaced by a swirling sea of colors and lights. Tarak found himself standing before the Tree of Souls, its glowing tendrils reaching out to him. He could feel its energy coursing through him, pulling him deeper into its embrace. "Why do you call me here?" he whispered into the void. A voice echoed in his mind, soft and ancient. "The sickness comes from the depths of Pandora, from a place long forgotten. To stop it, you must go where no Navi has ventured before." The vision shifted, and Tarak saw a vast canyon, its walls jagged and towering. Deep within the canyon lay a dark, swirling abyss, a place of ancient power, untouched by time or life. "You must journey to the great abyss," the voice said. "There, you will find the answers you seek." Tarak awoke with a start, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He lay still for a moment, the weight of the vision pressing down on him. The great abyss, a place of legend, feared by the Navi for generations. Few had ever ventured there, and none had returned. But now, it seemed, he had no choice. Tarak returned to the village just before dawn, his mind still swirling with the vision of the great abyss. He made his way to where the council and Clara's team were working. The weariness on their faces mirrored his own, but there was no time for rest. As he entered the large tent, Clara glanced up from her array of equipment, her expression troubled. "We've mapped the spread of the virus," she said, not bothering with greetings. "It's worse than we thought. If we can't find a solution soon, it'll wipe out the entire ecosystem. Everything, animals, plants, even the soil." Tarak nodded, his gaze distant. "I know where we need to go." Clara frowned. "What do you mean?" Tarak hesitated for a moment, the weight of the vision still heavy on his mind. But he knew what needed to be done. "I had a vision from the Tree of Souls. It showed me where the sickness comes from. There's a place, deep within Pandora, an abyss that holds the key to stopping this." Clara's brows furrowed. "An abyss? Are you saying this virus ice or broken bar natural to Pandora?" "It is ancient," Tarak said, his voice low. "A force that has been buried for many generations. If we are to stop it, we must go to the great abyss." The room fell silent, the Navi elders exchanging uneasy glances. They knew of the great abyss, though few had ever spoken of it. It was a place of legend, feared for its darkness and danger. No one had ever returned from its depths. Clara broke the silence, her voice steady. If that's where the source is, then that's where we'll go. But it won't be easy. Tarak met her gaze, surprised by her resolve. It is not a place for your people. The great abyss is dangerous, and many have lost their lives there. We don't have a choice, Clara replied firmly. We're all in this together now. We'll prepare the expedition immediately. Within hours, they had assembled a team. Tarak would lead the way, accompanied by a group of Navi warriors and a handful of Clara's scientists. Their journey would take them far beyond the familiar territories of Pandora, into the untamed wilderness that even the Navi avoided. Tarak could feel the weight of his ancestors' warning in his chest, but he pushed it aside. Pandora's survival depended on them. As they ventured deeper into the wild, the landscape began to shift. The vibrant, glowing forests of Pandora gave way to barren stretches of land. The trees gnarled and blackened. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and dry, the air heavy with an unnatural stillness. The further they traveled, the more Tarak could feel the sickness in the land, a malevolent force creeping through the very soil of Pandora. The journey was perilous. They encountered strange, mutated creatures along the way, animals that had once been part of Pandora's ecosystem but were now twisted by the virus. The Navi fought bravely, their arrows finding their marks, but the creatures grew more aggressive the closer they came to the abyss. Clara and her team collected samples, their faces etched with concern. The virus was evolving faster than they could track. It had already mutated several times since they had begun the research, making it even more difficult to predict how it would affect Pandora in the long term. After several days of travel, they reached the edge of the Great Abyss. It was a vast canyon, its walls jagged and towering, stretching deep into the earth. A dark mist rose from its depths, swirling ominously in the air. Tarak stood at the edge, staring down into the abyss. It was as he had seen in his vision, ancient, untouched by time or life. The place radiated a sense of foreboding, as if the land itself was warning them to turn back. We're here, he said quietly. Clara stepped up beside him, her eyes scanning the canyon below. This is it, then. Whatever's down there, broken bar, it's what's causing all of this. Tarak nodded. The virus comes from the depths. But it is not just a sickness, it is something more, something ancient. The group descended carefully into the abyss, the air growing colder and thicker with every step. The walls of the canyon loomed over them, their surfaces etched with strange, unrecognizable markings. The deeper they went, the more the land seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, the very air vibrating with power. They reached the bottom of the canyon after hours of careful climbing. The ground was soft and spongy beneath their feet, as if they were walking on the decayed remnants of something long forgotten. Tarak could feel the pull of the abyss, a deep, primal force tugging at his soul. In the center of the canyon, they found a massive, swirling vortex of dark energy, its surface crackling with electricity. It pulsed rhythmically, like the heartbeat of some ancient, slumbering beast. The air around it shimmered, distorting the space and light around them. "These a broken bar, this is it," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the vortex. "This is the source." Tarak nodded, stepping closer to the vortex. He could feel its power radiating outward, seeping into the land, poisoning everything it touched. This was the heart of the sickness, at the ancient force that had lain dormant beneath Pandora for centuries. "We need to stop it," Clara said, her voice urgent. "But how? We don't even understand what it is." Tarak closed his eyes, reaching out with his spirit to the Tree of Souls, searching for guidance. In his mind's eye, he saw the ancient city of the Navi, long abandoned and hidden deep within the abyss. The city's technology held the key to controlling this force, but it would require immense energy to power it, energy that could destabilize Pandora even further. He opened his eyes, turning to Clara. "There is a way. The city of our ancestors lies deeper within the abyss. Its technology can stop the sickness, but it is dangerous. We may not survive." Clara's expression hardened. "We'll survive. We have to." The group moved deeper into the abyss, guided by the visions of the ancient city. They found it buried beneath layers of rock and sediment, its structures twisted and decayed from centuries of neglect. But the core of the city still pulsed with energy, its ancient systems flickering to life as Tarak and the others approached. Clara and her team worked quickly, deciphering the Navi technology and connecting it to their own equipment. The process was grueling, and time was running out. The virus had already reached the edge of the abyss, and it wouldn't be long before it consumed them all. Tarak stood guard as Clara and her team activated the ancient machinery. The ground trembled beneath them, the air crackling with energy as the system roared to life. A blinding light erupted from the heart of the city, shooting upward into the sky, its power reaching deep into the earth. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the vortex in the center of the abyss began to shrink, its dark energy slowly dissipating into the air. The ground beneath their feet stopped shaking, and the oppressive weight of the sickness lifted. The virus was gone. Tarak let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, his chest tight with relief. They had done it. Pandora was safe. But the cost had been great. As they made their way out of the abyss, the land around them began to change. New life sprouted from the ground, plants and trees growing at an accelerated rate, their vibrant colors returning. But the landscape was different now. A new Pandora, reshaped by the ancient forces that had once threatened to destroy it. Tarak and Clara stood at the edge of the abyss, watching as the world around them came to life once more. They had saved Pandora, but the planet would never be the same. "It's beautiful," Clara whispered, her voice filled with awe. Tarak nodded, his gaze distant. "It is, but we must remain vigilant. Pandora will always need protecting." Clara turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You've saved your world, Tarak, and you've shown me that we can work together, despite everything that's happened." Tarak met her gaze, his heart filled with a strange sense of hope. "Perhaps there is a future for both our peoples." They stood together in silence, watching as Pandora began its new era of growth and regeneration. The great abyss still loomed behind them, a reminder of the ancient forces that had once threatened their world. But now, with the virus gone and the land healed, Pandora had a chance to thrive once more. And Tarak knew that, whatever the future held, he would be there to protect it.